Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Naranam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narot Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamti Nashtaprayeshu Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavad Neshtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7. Today we are starting new chapter, chapter 13. The behavior of a perfect person. So after discussing or describing the qualities of different varnas and ashrams and the duties, now Narad Muni is describing the behavior of a perfect person. Shri Narad Uvacha Kalpastvevam Paribrijya Dehamatravasheshitaha Grame Karat Ratra Vidhina Nirapekshas Charen Mahim. Shri Narad Muni said, a person able to cultivate spiritual knowledge should renounce all material connections and merely keeping the body inhabitable. He should travel from one place to another, passing only one night in each village. In this way, without dependence and regard to the needs of the body, the sannyasi should travel all over the world. So the previous chapter, he described the the duties, qualities of a brahmachari, then grihastha, then vanprastha, and now he's talking about sannyasi. And he says he should just travel and passing only one night in each village. Just keep on traveling. And merely keeping the body inhabitable means having enough food just to keep the body and soul together. That's the ideal situation. Vibhriyad yad yaso vasa kopinacha danam param tyaktam chalinga dandader anyat kinchid napadi. A person in the renounced order of life may try to avoid even a dress to cover himself. If he wears anything at all, it should only be a loincloth, means a kopin. And when there is no necessity, a sannyasi should not even accept a danda. A sannyasi should avoid carrying anything but a danda and kamandalu. So danda. So that danda is a sign of sannyas. It's very, very important sign actually. It has so much of significance because a sannyasi has only two possessions, a danda and a kamandalu. And there are two sects, Mayavadi and Vaishnava. So Mayavadi sect, they have only that. In danda means it's covered with a cloth, but inside it's a one bamboo stick. So one bamboo stick, it signifies that I'm one with God, according to Mayavadi philosophy. But in Vaishnava danda, they have three thin sticks tied together, and which signifies that I'm gonna serve the Lord with my body, mind, and words. But that danda, actually, it is said it is the all the demigods reside in that danda. That is why a sannyasi should keep the danda always up, should not let it touch the ground. So it's not just a danda to keep animals away. It's not that danda. It has a special significance. Eka eva charet bhikshu ratma ramo anapashreya sarvabhuta srichanto narayana parayana. The sannyasi, completely satisfied in the self, should live on alms begged from door to door. Not being dependent on any person or any place, he should always be a friendly well-wisher to all living beings. and be a peaceful, unalloyed devotee of Narayana. In this way, he should move from one place to another. So that is sannyas. It's not that easy. It just sounds very exotic, but no. The real sannyasi, just like during Kumbh Mela, you must have seen the pictures of in person, the Naga Babas who come from Himalayas. So if you look at them, they don't wear even kopin, they don't wear. They're completely naked, they cover the body with the ashes and have the matted hair. They, of course, they don't carry danda because they are in the Babaji stage. But they live like that even in Himalayas. No fear, no cold, nothing bothers. It's amazing. And just, it's because people don't understand their potencies or their renunciation. So people make fun of them. People try to take selfie with them. Of course, they allow, some of them allow, but that's not what they are there for. And that is why in Kumbh Mela, at least in Prayagraj, I'm pretty sure in Haridwar also and other places, they are the first ones to take bath. They're so renounced and spiritually so advanced. Philosophy could be different. I'm not saying they all they follow Vaishnava philosophy. Most of them are Mayavadis. Yes, true. But the kind of renunciation they have, it's amazing. Pashyad atmanyado vishvam pare sadasato avyaye atmanam cha param brahma sarvatra sad asanmaye. The sannyasi should always try to see the Supreme pervading everything and see everything, including this universe, resting on the Supreme. So just like in the previous verse, we saw how the Paramatma feature, the Supreme Lord is there in every atom. So in every atom, not just the Paramatma feature, all his potencies, his associates, even the jivas are there in every atom. So sannyasi should try to see that Supreme Lord pervading everything and everything resting on the Supreme. There's nothing that can exist without the Lord. Supti prabodhayo sandhavan atmano gatim atmadrik pashyan bandham cha moksham cha maya matram navastutaha. During unconsciousness and consciousness, and between the two, he should try to understand the self and be fully situated in the self. In this way, he should realize that the conditional and liberated stages of life are only illusory and not actually factual. With such a higher understanding, he should see only the absolute truth pervading everything. The unconscious stage is nothing but ignorance, darkness, material existence. And in the conscious state, one is awake. The marginal state between consciousness and unconsciousness has no permanent existence. Therefore, one who is advanced in understanding the self should understand that unconsciousness and consciousness are but illusions, for they are fundamentally do not exist. Only the supreme absolute truth exists. So here even it is said, even consciousness are but illusions. So when we are up, it's also illusion because we are sleeping to our spiritual existence. So only the supreme absolute truth exists. Rest everything is illusion. By me, in my unmanifested form, the entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I'm not in them. Everything exists on the basis of Krishna's impersonal feature. Nothing can exist without him. Therefore, the advanced devotee of Krishna can see the Lord everywhere without illusion. So that is a right level of consciousness. When we see the Lord everywhere. And for a sannyasi, he sees the Lord everywhere and he's just completely dependent upon the Lord. It's easier said than done. It's difficult to do it. Nabhinandeta dhruvam mrityum madhruvam vasya jivitam kalam param pratiksheta bhutanam prabhavapya ayam. Since the material body is sure to be vanquished and the duration of one's life is not fixed, neither death nor life is to be praised. Rather, one should observe the eternal time factor in which the living entity manifests himself and disappears. So the living entity in the material world, not only at the present, but also in the past, have been involved in trying to solve the problem of birth and death. Some stress death and point to the illusory existence of everything material, whereas others stress life, trying to preserve it perpetually and enjoy it to the best of their ability. Both of them are fools and prostitutes. It is advised that one observe the eternal time factor, which is a cause of the material body's appearance and disappearance, and that one observes the living entity's entanglement in this time factor. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur therefore sings in his Gitavali, Anadi karma phale padi bhavarana vachale. One should observe the activities of eternal time, which is a cause of birth and death. Before the creation of the present millennium, the living entities were under the influence of the time factor. And within the time factor, the material world comes into existence and is again annihilated. Bhutva bhutva praliyate. Being under the control of the time factor, the living entities appear and die, life after life. This time factor is an impersonal representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives the living entities conditioned by material nature a chance to emerge from this nature by surrendering to him. So the time factor is an impersonal representation, because with time, everything changes in the material world. There's nothing permanent. And that's why the shloka says, the duration of one's life is not fixed. Neither death nor life is to be praised. But everybody is so much concerned about, how we're going to live, how am I going to make money, and how I'm going to take care of my this or that. Of course, as a matter of duty, yes, but ultimately everything rests in the hands of Krishna. But we get all worked up, taking care, thinking, if I don't take care, who will? And there is a nice story. In Gaudiya Vaishnavas, there's been Acharya named Sridhar Pandit, Sridhar Acharya, or Sridhar Swami. So he was a young boy living with his mother in his hut. And then because he was so advanced, he thought of taking sannyas and leaving. But then he thought, what will people say? I have such an old mother and I have to take care of her. How can I leave? So he said, okay, maybe after some time. But then after some time, his mother insisted and Sridhar Swami got married. So then he thought of leaving and taking sannyas, but then he thought, how can I leave now? My mother is the old mother and the young wife is there. How can I leave? After a while, his mother died. So then he thought of leaving, but then he said, what will everybody say? That my young wife is there and I just left her. So thinking like that, then they had a little baby, son. Then he was also again stuck that how can I leave now? After a while, his wife died. So this is all Krishna's arrangement. So then he was thinking that we leave now. But then he thought, how can I leave? My baby is so little. Who's going to protect him? Who's going to take care of him? But while he was thinking like that, he saw from the wall of the hut, there were lizards on the wall, and a little baby lizard fell down from the wall on the floor. And he was watching him very carefully. And then near that baby lizard, an insect passed by. And the baby lizard just moved and ate that insect, because that's what the lizards do. So Sridhar Swami, this was his realization, that see, this lizard was supposed to be on the wall and he was supposed to eat insects on the wall. But he fell down. And Krishna made arrangement for his food, so he doesn't go hungry. So won't that Supreme Lord make arrangement for my son, for my little baby? He does, he will, and he always does actually. So then he said, this is it. So he just left and he took sannyas. Obviously, Krishna made arrangement for the baby. So the point is, ultimately, it's Krishna only who's taking care of everybody. Nobody else. It's him only. And he takes care of everybody. Just like it's a common saying in Bihar that like in our body, there are many holes, and every hole has to have its own whatever has to go inside, like the ears are for hearing, so the sound goes into the ears, and the nostrils are for breathing. So similarly, the mouth is for eating and for speaking. So in Bihar, it is a saying that अगर उसने यहाँ opening दी है, तो खाने के लिए भी देगा. So if he has provided an opening in the mouth at the place where the mouth is, he will give the food also. Otherwise, he won't have given the opening. Of course, it doesn't mean that we just sit and don't do anything. We have to do our action. But he does take care of everybody. And especially devotees. Because he loves his devotees. So he does take care. And that's, of course, I'm not a sannyasi and I'm not a very advanced spiritualist, still a neophyte, still struggling with my senses and desires. But this is my personal experience. He takes care of everybody. He does. And does take care of very nicely also. Not just take care, nicely. To the full satisfaction of devotee's heart. So all we have to do is just take steps towards him. And we take baby steps towards him and he runs towards us. This is how much he loves his devotees. Na satcha sreshu sajjet, nopajivet jivikam, vadavatas tyajet katarkam, paksham kam cha na sanshret. Literature that is a useless waste of time, in other words, literature without spiritual benefit, should be rejected. One should not become a professional teacher as a means of earning one's livelihood. Nor should one indulge in arguments and counter-arguments. Nor should one take shelter of any cause or faction. A person desiring to advance in spiritual understanding should be extremely careful to avoid reading ordinary literature. The world is full of ordinary literature that creates unnecessary agitation in the mind. Such literature, including newspapers, dramas, novels, and magazines, is factually not meant for advancement in spiritual knowledge. Indeed, it has been described as a place of enjoyment for crows. Tadvayasam tirtham ushanti manasa. Anyone advancing in spiritual knowledge must reject such literature. Furthermore, one should not concern oneself with the conclusions of various logicians or philosophers. Of course, those who preach sometimes need to argue with the contentions of opponents, but as much as possible, one should avoid an argumentative attitude. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya says, Aparayojan paksham na samshraya. There is no need to take shelter of unnecessary literature or concern oneself with many so-called philosophers and thinkers who are useless for spiritual advancement. Nor should one accept a disciple for the sake of fashion or popularity. One should be callous to these so-called shastras, neither opposing nor favoring them. And one should not earn one's livelihood by taking money for explaining shastra. A sannyasi must always be neutral and seek the means to advance in spiritual life, taking full shelter under the lotus feet of the Lord. So this should be the behavior of a sannyasi. No getting involved in mundane literature. Of course, as Prabhupada says, sometimes we have to read something just to preach properly. But it's again, that's a different viewpoint. But otherwise, one should not. Like Prabhupada once asked his disciples to get him this Time magazine, as Prabhupada wanted to see how they write, and if Prabhupada could get some tips. And he started reading, and after a while, he told his servant, just take this book away. And servant said, what happened, Prabhupada? Prabhupada said, it's just written so nicely, you get absorbed in reading more and more and more and more. Of course, those writers of Time magazine articles, they're very professionals, and this is how they present, so that we get attracted and we get attached to reading. So that's how they can sell more magazines. That's the whole idea. So this is how these literatures are created. So one should, if not cannot avoid it, then minimize it. That's all. It can take the mind away from spirituality or spiritual literatures. And also, one should not explain shastras for making money, because then one becomes a professional, and that's not the purpose of explaining scriptures or discussing scriptures. One who is fully surrendered, one who has understood scriptures, is completely dependent upon the Lord to take care of him. Why he wants money for giving classes or explaining scriptures in any other way? Krishna will provide as long as we do our services nicely, with full determination and service mode, and in a service mode. Prabhupada never charged money for giving lectures, and Krishna provided everything for him. Everything. If somebody wants to give charity, that's up to him. But a devotee should never charge money for giving classes or for doing any devotional service. Then there is no surrender, there is no dependence on the Lord. Na shishyan anubadhnita grantha nevabhyased bahun na vyakhyayam upayunjita Narambha narabhet kvachit. A sannyasi must not present allurements of material benefits to gather more disciples, nor should he unnecessarily read many books or give discourses as a means of livelihood. He must never attempt to increase material opulences unnecessarily. So-called swamis and yogis generally make disciples by alluring them material benefits. There are many so-called gurus who attract disciples by promising to cure their diseases or increase their material opulence by manufacturing gold. These are lucrative allurements for unintelligent men. A sannyasi is prohibited from making disciples through such material allurements. Sannyasis sometimes indulge in material opulence by unnecessarily constructing many temples and monasteries, but actually such endeavors should be avoided. Temples and monasteries should be constructed for the preaching of spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, not to provide free hotels for persons who are useful for neither material nor spiritual purposes. Temples and monasteries should be strictly off limits to worthless clubs of crazy men. In the Krishna consciousness movement, we welcome everyone who agrees at least to follow the movement's regulatory principles: no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, and no gambling. In the temples and monasteries, gatherings of unnecessary, rejected, lazy fellows should be strictly disallowed. The temples and monasteries should be used exclusively by devotees who are serious about spiritual advancement in Krishna consciousness. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains the word Arambhan as meaning Mathadi Vyaparan, which means attempts to construct temples and monasteries. The first business of the sannyasi is to preach Krishna consciousness, but if by the grace of Krishna facilities are available, then he may construct temples and monasteries to give shelter to the serious students of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, such temples and monasteries are not needed. So very, very heavy statements about construction of temples and monasteries. And so in ISKCON, Prabhupada established these temples. He said these are the resting places for the soldiers. So they come, they take rest, and then they revive themselves and go back out there to fight with Maya, to book distribution or to Sankirtan or to preaching. So the temples should be for that purpose only. And this should not be, as Prabhupada said, should not construct too many temples and monasteries, because then the point is then person or sannyasi, even they can get attached. Just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in those days, in like early 1900s, he constructed a beautiful temple in Kolkata, put marble everywhere at that time. And then before that, they had a very small ashram. And then when temple got constructed and everybody was moving into the ashram, into new temple, then there were sannyasis who were disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. They were fighting. And I'll take this room and I'll take that room. And Maharaj was so upset. And he later said, I wish I can just take off the marble from the walls of this temple and sell them and print books. Because this can happen, it happens. This is Maya. I mean, of course, the devotee wants to construct beautiful places for the Lord. But if it becomes a source of fighting and attachment, then we are missing the whole purpose. And as Prabhupada writes, temples and monasteries should be strictly off limits to worthless clubs of crazy men. Because when we construct big temples, we need to fill them up. And if there are crazy men, means lazy people, or they come to serve in the temple with some some ulterior motives, that's not, that just defeats the whole purpose. So sannyasi, he should be careful of that. That's what Narad Muni is saying. So anyway, we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, so you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.